Trauma Therapist Podcast, episode 402. Welcome to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. My name is Guy McPherson. My mission is to raise the awareness of trauma and to help support and inspire new trauma workers through this podcast and my membership community, Trauma Therapist 2.0. Thanks so much for joining me today, and here we go. All right, guys, I just want to say that I am thrilled to have this podcast sponsored by CPTSDfoundation.org. A little while ago, I actually got to meet the founder, Athena Moberg of CPTSD Foundation. We met here in San Francisco, sat down, had breakfast, and it was amazing. I got to feel and see her passion, the passion that she has for this work, and not just for therapists and clinicians, but survivors as well. CPTSD Foundation provides peer-led support and adjunctive care in between therapy sessions for survivors of complex trauma. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, survivors can come together to give and receive support and validation and feel equipped with the knowledge and skills they can use every day. You can check it out at CPTSDfoundation.org. Their website is amazing. They have daily recovery support. They have free support groups. They have a healing book club. And Trauma Therapist Podcast listeners can get 50% off the first month when they join the daily recovery support calls. You can check that out by going to cptsdfoundation.org/Trauma Therapist Podcast. Once again, that's cptsdfoundation.org/Trauma Therapist Podcast. Or just head on over to the website at traumatherapistpodcast.com and click on the link there, and you'll be in business. Trauma may be a fact of life, but it doesn't have to be a life sentence. Somatic Experiencing is a psychobiological method of addressing clients' physical and emotional trauma conditions and helps to give voice to their experiences without a need for them to retell their story. SE is a complementary modality that focuses on regulation of the nervous system and offers the opportunity to engage, complete, and resolve the body's instinctual responses to traumatic experiences. For more information regarding somatic experiencing and the SE professional training program, please visit www.traumahealing.org. That's www.traumahealing.org. All right, guys, welcome back to the Trauma Therapist Podcast. I'm very excited to have as my guest today, Robyn Gobbel. Robyn, welcome.
Thank you. Super excited to be here with you today.
All right. So Robyn has over 15 years of practice in family and play therapy, specializing in complex trauma, attachment, and adoption. Her diverse clinical training includes EMDR, Somatic Experiencing, and Theraplay, among others. Robyn has integrated these training modalities with a foundation of attachment theory and the relational neurosciences to create an attachment-rich, sensory-sensitive, and relational neurosciences-supported healing environment for children and families. Robyn consults, teaches, and trains extensively throughout the U.S., including as an instructor for the Foundations of Interpersonal Neurobiology certificate program at Portland Community College. Awesome. Well, thanks again for joining me today.
Yeah.
All right. So before we get started, share with our listeners where you're from and where you're calling from, and then let's do it.
Sure. So I'm currently sitting in my new home office in Grand Rapids, Michigan, where I've only lived for 4 weeks.
Oh, wow.
I lived in Austin, Texas for 15 years, had a clinical practice there,
Okay.
and closed it down and moved across the country this summer.
Why'd you move?
Well, that's a great question. We decided about a year and a half ago that Austin wasn't destined to be our forever and ever home. And we really were looking for a slower pace of life, a less expensive pace of life. I was commuting a ton.
No.
Austin's a very expensive, very, very busy place to live. And we have an up and coming 8th grader, and we just decided we've got 5 years left with him and we want a lifestyle overhaul. Nice. So we decided that in January and got our house on the market and packed up and moved. We have family in the area. I'm from here. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that. Yeah. The reason I ask is we're thinking about relocating too, but we can talk about that later.
Yeah.
So let's dive in here. Reading through the what portion of your bio I read, mean, it's obvious you have a lot of experience and a lot of diverse experience too. How the heck did you get into this field? That's what we want to explore today.
Yeah. Well, I think like a lot of us, there's probably, I think I've probably always been driven to this field in one way or another. I have a very clear memory of picking up the books of this woman named Tori Hayden. She was actually a special educator, and she worked with kids with what we would now call really serious complex trauma, very significant symptoms. And she wrote books about her experience as an educator, and they read like novels, but they were autobiographical. And I remember it being in high school and really feeling like this is what I want to do. Like what she does with these kids is so magical and so amazing. And that's what I want to do. And so again, like all of us, my path has gone like a couple different ways. I spent a semester in college as a music education major, and, I've done different things and have, really finally landed back on, no, these are the kids I want to work with. I want to work with the kids with, the hardest symptoms, the hardest backgrounds. And that's ultimately what I've ended up doing.
So first off, Tori, what was her last name?
Her last name is Hayden, Hayden, I think.
Okay. And that Tori or Y?
I think it's Y.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're reading these books in high school?
Yeah. They were in our high school library. I just found them.
So, I mean, obviously, not everyone who's intrigued or lured by these types of things gets into the field. What about the intensity that these kids with the severity of their issues? What about that kind of pulled you to get to start pursuing this?
I think it would be hard to articulate like a really factual why. I can say that it's like it's my favorite thing. I had opportunities to be with kids that had these backgrounds and had these symptoms, and I also love their families. I tend to work with kids post-adoption, and so I'm working with their new families, and I love them. And it's just one of those things when I show up in the room and I love these kids. And I've done other work, and like the excitement inside of me and the like the enjoyment, the presence, it just like nothing comes close to when I'm with these kids and with their families. And even when I go and speak at like adoptive parent conferences, I sit in these ballrooms and I'm just like, I just love it here. I love these families. I love what we're here for. I love that we're all here for the same kids.
What is it in you that lights up?
Wow. It feels like my first thought is like, oh man, everything, like me and you are on video, you can see my smile. It like moves and propels my body forward in a way and with excitement that like hardly anything else does.
Yeah, that's awesome. When I was, I was working in a clinic for 5 years. We were working with kids who were showing early signs of psychosis, and we were assessing and treating them. And a lot of them were adopted and foster kids, rather.
Sure.
And what, for me, and I can obviously see your excitement and that for me, one of the things was there's like no room for bullshit, right? And when I first started, I did have this idea of how I should be and how I should act. Granted, I was new starting out. Yep. And that all kind of just disintegrated. You have to shed that. Yep. And being able to be in the room, like you're talking about, that presence, that fired me up.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes I'll often say to their parents, like, listen, these kids are so clear with us. If we would just stop and listen to them and pay attention, they're actually being quite clear with us about what they need. It's just oftentimes not what we really want to give because it's hard or it's inconvenient. And, I think I just love, I hate to say the resilience of their spirit because it's not that exactly, but it's almost like a tenacity that kids who are, engaging in therapy, there's still a part of them that believes that something could get better or something can change. And I think I have a lot of like reverence for that tenacity of these, you know, really hurt clients who keep trying, like they keep coming and they keep trying. And I'm, you know, that's really inspiring.
Yeah. So you talk a little bit about your path into the field. You said you were a music major. Mm-hmm. So how did that evolve?
Well, I just wasn't particularly good at being a music major. And, you know, I had a moment of thinking like, oh, my path of being a music major is that I'm going to be a band director. I'm not sure that is exactly what I want to do. And so I actually did a couple years as a special education major, probably likely because of my reading of those books in high school. And then it just stumbled into the psychology department. Ultimately decided that seemed like a much better match with the heart work I wanted to do and the intensity of the work that I really wanted to do. So yeah, I have an undergrad degree in psychology, a master's degree in social work. And when I left social work school, I almost immediately moved into child welfare. I worked for several years as kind of a more traditional social worker while my son was tiny, and I was focusing a lot on staying home and raising him. I did more kind of traditional social work, adoption work. And then actually what happened is that in 2009, some things intersected for my husband, and we decided the best choice for him was to quit his job. And that left me as the primary income earner in the family. And so I said, well, I need to, you know, I'm going back to doing clinical work, and going back into doing, you know, full-time working with kids and families. And I've done that ever since.
So, you know, the people listening to this, as you may know, are therapists of all kinds and different levels of experience and so forth, students a lot. What is it about, you know, the foster kids, that kind of demographic, if you will? Number one, that people don't know about. What is it that people aren't familiar with? Our listeners, maybe what they're not, wow, I didn't know that, or...
There's so much about, I would say more about adoption that I think is actually a huge need in our clinical field for people to be more aware of the issues related to adoption. If we talk more specifically about the complex trauma, foster care, international adoption piece, for me, it's about the complexity of treating kids with complex trauma. And that's why, like, when you read my bio, you see these really diverse experiences that I've engaged in, that I've done, you know, I've done body work and somatic work. I trained in aerial yoga as an aerial yoga kids teaching, and I hung an aerial yoga hammock in my office. I've done Theraplay, I've done EMDR, I've done more traditional play therapy, because these kids have such profound levels of impairment really across so many different domains for them, that I've found it to be really important to certainly hold all of those modalities on top of what I know you value the most too, which is presence, relational engagement, attunement, resonance. But then also to look at, and this child has a really significant impairment in their ability to regulate and modulate, you know, emotion and energy. And so how do we support that? And these are kids, so they're kinesthetic. And so we're moving and we're dancing and we're hanging upside down. And so I think the depth and the breadth of working with kids with complex trauma, and that it's a complex process.
How do you know, having said that, how do you, and granted it's hard to be use generalizations, but how do you begin to foster that, no pun intended there, but foster the relationship with these adoptive kids.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I think so much of this is about really fully embracing my truth, which is, I had a mentor once say to me, I've never met a true self that I haven't fallen in love with. And that really changed everything I do about therapy. Looking at clients, looking at my experience with them, examining my feelings towards them. And I think that really catapulted me into really immersing myself in like interpersonal neurobiology, relational neurosciences, and allowing me to understand what's happening in front of me and with this child, which then for me, that allows me to stay so solidly in this belief of like all parts of you are welcome here. Every part that like out in the real world gets criticized or shamed or discussed or all these very human reactions that people are giving to kids that have really hard behaviors. I think because I hold it so solidly in my body that truth is communicated instantly.
Oh, that's pretty awesome.
I hope it is. I mean, that's my goal. That's what I show up every day to work, hoping that like that's communicated implicitly and sometimes explicitly. Like that quote, I've never met a true self I haven't fallen in love with. I had that hand lettered and I hang it in my office. Like I want my clients to know that I believe that. And sometimes I, certainly say it overtly and to kids too. Like all that part of you gets to come here too. Wow. I want that part of you to come here tof
That is so powerful. And I can just see that and feel that. What are some of the things, I mean, you touched upon it, but what are some of the things that you're doing to let them know that, or as you said, you're kind of holding that space. What does that look like? Yeah,
that's a great, yes. So I think what I'm doing that might look different even than from what other child therapists are doing is I have this way that I feel like I'm leaning into what they're giving me. So for example, kids come and once they're comfortable, and that sometimes is immediately, we're seeing all their everything that's existing out in the real world where they're used to getting like, no, don't do that, or you can't do that in here. And instead, like my lens is working to stay as curious as possible, given the fact that sometimes it's really intense, and like really looking at like, what is this child doing? What's their body doing? What are their behavioral patterns? What's their relational experiences? Can I take what they're doing and somehow lean into it and help organize and co-regulate it? And so honestly, so what that really looks like is sometimes I toss a balloon at a kid who is, disconnected from me and is all over the room and struggling to have any relational connection to them. But I see that they have a lot of movement. Mm-hmm. And so maybe what I want to do is help kind of co-organize and co-regulate that movement through them, and then also get a little bit of dyadic interplay going back and forth, because maybe once I toss a balloon to them, they'll toss it back to me, which actually works, I would say 80% of the time. Mm-hmm. I might pull out bubbles, or like I'm looking at what they're doing. Are you hanging upside down? Oh, let's do somersaults across the room together. Or let me show you how you can hang upside down in my hammock. Or a kid that's doing handstands over and over again. I'm, looking for a way to go with, assume that they're doing something in an attempt to help their body feel better. But that they need some support in co-organizing, co-regulating it. And so I'll lean into what's happening instead of boundarying, instead of saying, oh, we don't do that in here, or those types of things. I'm still setting a boundary, right? As far as like behavior that's acceptable. I'm just doing it in a way of like leaning into it and helping to co-regulate it.
So it feels like it's a place of complete acceptance.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, were you always Like, I mean, did this, like from the get-go, was this you?
No, definitely not. I think I knew what I was searching for, because when I look back and I look at like who I was choosing as mentors, I think I can see this pattern of like, oh, you knew that was out there and you were looking for it. But, you know, some of it is just getting better at being a therapist and the normal progression of, you know, developing confidence and competence and all that kind of stuff. But the mentor that I said, who introduced that quote to me and, you know, said, I've never met a true self I haven't fallen in love with. That same year, I started really intensively studying with Bonnie Badenoch. And I also found myself a really amazing therapist. It kind of all happened at the same time. And I think that's when I really be able to, you know, started to really lean into and fully embodying these, you know, ideas about humans and how humans get better and how to be in therapy.
Those experiences that kind of coalesce there in a sense, did they free up confidence in you, or how? I know these things are hard to articulate, but it's so interesting. How did those things allow to evolve for you?
Yeah, I feel pretty certain that what happened is permission to be not always right about everything. Permission to...
For you as a therapist.
Yes.
Yeah.
To welcome curiosity and ambivalence. I mean, my primary protector in life has always been like, I study really hard. I get all the A's. I know the answers. Like that's how I've always regulated in life. And I think this kind of, again, like trifecta of experiences that kind of happened in a similar time period really let me lean into like, oh, actually, to be a really good therapist, which I really want to be, I actually have to be okay with the fact that there's no answer. There is no answer key. Nobody's ever going to give me an A+ at this. Like, I have to be so okay with never knowing the answer and with being wrong. And I think in a way I've been waiting to feel that my whole life. And it just kind of all happened all at the same time.
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
What happened to me? I've shared this before, but when I was going through this process of working with kids and coming out of school, feeling like I did need and wanted to know the answers, right? And I had this clinical hat on, and slowly, I was able to, like you said, learn to not know. But really, what happened? The kind of proverbial straw, was after my mom died.
Yeah.
Unexpectedly, I took some time off and blah, blah, blah. And then when I came back to work, there was this weight lifted off.
Yeah.
And what I can so identify with what you're talking about now. And it was very freeing, not just for myself, but for the people I was working with. And, what you're talking about here, that freedom is very powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds so simple. It really does.
Yeah. It's not been simple. Yes, we could certainly say simple, but also very, very hard. And I don't think that I had like this amazing moment of whatever. I think that I've worked really hard in my life, and I've worked hard. I've always been in therapy. My husband's been in his own therapy. Like, we really value doing our own work, and like the pieces just really started falling together. And I finally had a moment where I could say like I'm working too hard in life. I need a rest. Like, I need a rest, and I need permission to just be me. And I really think that being a therapist and really believing that our clients needed that, was extra motivation to me. I wanted to be a good therapist. And so, I have to be okay with being authentic. I have to be okay with being vulnerable. I have to be okay with just being me. My clients need that. I better figure out a way to do that.
Why is that important for clients to maybe know or feel that, you as a therapist don't have all the answers and it's okay? And why is it important for them to feel that, this is a place where I'm not going to be judged and so forth?
Well, my first instinct is to lean a little left brain and say, my theory, I feel so clear with the relational neurosciences, polyvagal theory, that for clients to have the experience in the room of allowing some of their like dissociated parts of self to get touched on, that can only happen in a space of not a boundaryless space, but a space of, again, all parts of you are welcome here. Mm-hmm. And for me to really embody that truth also means I have to believe that about myself, that all of my parts are welcome and that they all make perfect sense. And, to stay in a place of compassion as much as possible.
That's a pretty profound statement, I think. So it's not just, creating a space where, and it's easy to say, right?
Yeah.
As a therapist, all parts are welcome here.
Yep.
You're also saying, wait a minute, in order for me to truly embody that, I have to be okay with that too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what was that like for you? That process of getting to the point where you're able to say that and feel that and own that?
Terrifying and wonderful, and it's hard to find words for that. My quote, I've never met a true self I haven't fallen in love with. I know you know in some way my colleague Marshall Lyles, and I had lunch with him shortly after that.
I love Marshall.
I know. Marshall's like my person. And I remember him saying to me at lunch, he's like, wow, we're going to have to believe that about ourselves too. And I'm like, oh man, yeah, you are so right. And it really just, I studied so intensely with Bonnie Badenoch, who really believes all of this too, and really emphasizes the importance of that therapist's sense of self. And if I want a client to believe that that's true about in my office, all parts of you are welcome, that's only possible if I believe that not only about them, but about me. And then I've just been so lucky to have a great therapist who has done the hard work with me, because I don't know that I'm the easiest client.
Mm-hmm. So the people out there listening, I have a feeling right up until the point everyone's like, yes, this sounds great. She sounds awesome. Wait a minute. I've got to believe all that stuff about myself too. Because that's a big, that's a game shifter. So it's not, you're not just in there, the room with that, but you've got to have your own stuff. Together, but working.
No, not together, but yeah.
What do you say to people who are like, okay, yes, I get it. How do I do that? What does that mean? What's involved with that? Going back, and how do you welcome these parts that maybe are shameful or what?
Yeah. Well, the way that I've been working, the way that I did it myself, and then the way that now I'm trying to give to therapists, because since I moved across the country, I closed my clinical practice, and I have, I'll open a clinical practice eventually, but I'm focusing more now on consulting and being with therapists, is to create a space for them to experience that. To create a space with professional colleagues, with a mentor, someone they admire, but that's still ultimately that safety of I actually mean it. All parts of you get to come here too. And I think I do that somewhat by being very explicit about it. I think I do it in some ways about making that true about myself. Like even when I show up as a consultation leader, that I'm bringing all of myself to you. I'm telling you about the things that I think, and the things that I've done that I've messed up, and the things that happen in my head during a therapy session that I'm not super proud about. And, that like, that's true of all of us. And, really overtly creating a space of, no, I actually really mean it. All parts of you get to come here. I really mean it.
I just want to remind everyone that I'm speaking with Robyn Gobbel, gobbelcounseling.com, Gobbel counseling.com. I'll have that listed up here at the show notes page at the traumatherapistpodcast.com. So you talked about currently you're working in a consultant environment capacity. Talk a little bit more about that and what you're offering, how people can find out about that, et cetera.
Yeah. So I run several online groups. They're consultation-ish groups, but as we establish safety, they turn into kind of what you and I have been talking about, and allowing therapists for deeper self-exploration. I've been in the middle.
These are groups, right?
Yeah, and right now I'm doing them all online. Again, I've been in the middle of I have to move across the country, and I had to create some sort of sustainable income to get through that.
Sure.
So I've been doing online groups. I do online webinars. They're short. I do them for parents of kids with complex trauma. I do them for therapists. I've taught some classes online, and I have a couple workshops that I've traveled around the country with. I usually just have a host in a city, and one workshop is when I do myself. One is when I do with Marshall. We have a fun workshop that we do together. So yeah, I'm really focusing on supporting therapists, at least in the short term, until I sort of kind of re-get my bearings and decide okay, now what?
Right. Well, I love that. I mean, I love how you're bringing, not just your experience with the different modalities, but your truth and the path of uncovering the therapist for him or herself. That is awesome. Yeah. All right. So as we get ready to close out here, I mean, you've mentioned Tori Hayden and Bonnie Badenoch, but in terms of any other go-to book recommendations that whether trauma related or not, or something that's inspiring you, what do you have for us?
Yeah, so certainly Bonnie's book, especially her first one. But the work that I do with complex trauma kids has been really inspired by Bruce Perry and The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog, and the way that I do so much movement and so much body work. And then, a book that's really inspiring me right now, as I'm in this kind of moment of what am I going to do next, has been Elizabeth Gilbert's Big Magic book, and just looking at creativity and looking at how I can apply the concepts of creativity to what's happening for me and what do I want to do next personally and professionally.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I haven't read Elizabeth Gilbert's book, Big Magic, but I love how you're kind of associating with this work. And of course, Bruce Perry, we'll have all those listed up. Robyn, you are on fire. I really enjoyed.
It's been fun. Yeah.
I really enjoyed speaking with you, and love to have you back.
Yeah.
Share what's going on with you. I come across every now and then, I think, people who are doing the work and living what I'm hoping this podcast is about.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm really thankful that you were here today.
Yeah. Good. Me too. And I know this is what your podcast is about, and there's such an emphasis on that. So yes, thank you for having me.
All right. Take care.
Yeah. Thanks. You too.
Foundation for Human Enrichment, DBA Somatic Experiencing Trauma Institute, is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to resolving trauma worldwide by providing professional training and education in somatic experiencing. It was founded by Dr. Peter Levine, author of Waking the Tiger, who developed somatic experiencing based on explorations of how animals deal with threat and traumatic experiences on a daily basis. Learn more about somatic experiencing and the SE professional training at www.traumahealing.org. That's www.traumahealing.org. All right, guys, I just want to say that I am thrilled to have this podcast sponsored by CPTSDfoundation.org. A little while ago, I actually got to meet the founder, Athena Moberg of CPTSD Foundation. We met here in San Francisco, sat down, had breakfast, and it was amazing. I got to feel and see her passion, the passion that she has for this work, and not just for therapists and clinicians, but survivors as well. CPTSD Foundation provides peer-led support and adjunctive care in between therapy sessions for survivors of complex trauma. 7 days a week, 365 days a year, survivors can come together to give and receive support and validation and feel equipped with the knowledge and skills they can use every day. You can check it out at CPTSDfoundation.org. Their website is amazing. They have daily recovery support. They have free support groups. They have a healing book club. And Trauma Therapist podcast listeners can get 50% off the first month when they join the daily recovery support calls. You can check that out by going to cptsdfoundation.org/trauma therapist podcast. Once again, that's cptsdfoundation.org/trauma therapist podcast. Or just head on over to the website at traumatherapistpodcast.com and click on the link there, and you'll be in business.